Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I was making a video just now and my phone said my SIM card wasn't in the phone, so I think it had some water damage or something, but it seems to be working all right now. We'll see how it goes as we go along. But yeah, man, his Jay-Z situation is what was on my mind. He's essentially being hit with underage SA charges from an alleged incident that took place back in 2000, I think, maybe the year 2000. 13-year-old girl was allegedly assaulted by him, P. Diddy, and another female celebrity was in the car watching. We don't know who that person is, but given who P. Diddy was with at the time, people are thinking it's J-Lo. Who knows? Do I think this happened? I don't know, man. I don't know. But I think that anything involving this P. Diddy lawsuit is going to unearth a lot of people's transgressions. And I think that's really what it is. Jay-Z dropped a statement. I thought it was, to my eyesight, not incriminating necessarily. But I don't think he vehemently denied the claims strong enough for a lot of people who are critiquing what was said. It was definitely well said, but him trying to discredit the lawyer doesn't probably sit right with a lot of people. That's what Jay was trying to do, essentially saying the lawyer was an ambulance chaser in a cheap suit, like that type of stuff. I don't think that's really the energy you need to be putting out when people are accusing you of something this heinous. And then talking about how the only part of this that breaks his heart is having to sit down with his daughter and explain why people are greedy. You're a billionaire, bro. Nobody want to hear that from you either. If anybody's greedy, they're going to say it's you. Regardless if it's true or not, that's exactly how people are going to look at it. Like, yo, what's this hoarder of money talking about? Like, so I think it was a little out of touch. And I don't think it came off the way Jay was hoping it would. So I don't know, man. I look at this situation, I say, listen, man, back in 2000, to me, it seemed like Jay-Z was an awful careful individual, a lot more careful than P. Diddy. P. Diddy liked to have a lot of fun. Jay-Z liked to be meticulous about what he did. He tended to make some mistakes here and there, but you wouldn't associate him with doing reckless and stupid, brash behaviors. That was not who his reputation was back in 2000. That was Blueprint. Like, Blueprint Jay was extremely serious. He was in the middle of the Nas beef. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on. I can't see him personally. I can't see him in that space at that time, based on my remembrance of his image at that time. I don't think so. Now, has he been known as somebody who liked women who were younger than him? Yeah, obviously. Some of that stuff looked crazy. I'm not gonna lie. Jigga need to understand that. His reputation doesn't exactly wipe away any ideas that he would otherwise like an under type of female, like Aaliyah, Foxy, even Beyonce. He was tied to all these people allegedly before they were over the age of 18, so that people would call him a PDF file, kind of something he ain't gonna be able to really shake, to be honest with you. But as far as him just taking it from a woman in 2000, or a girl, well, I can't see Jay-Z having issues getting a woman to be with him at any given moment in the year 2000. I don't see that. Not at that time. Jigga was on top of the world, untouchable for the most part, with the beef going on. It just seems like that was a weird time for him to be SAing anybody next to Puffy of all people. I don't see it. Not saying it didn't happen. I'm just telling you, as somebody who's 40 years of age who remembers Jay-Z and his image back then, I don't see it. But it mean it didn't happen. So, this lawyer, Tony Busby, essentially is coming out. He's been tied to a lot of other things. He was tied to the Deshaun Watson case. He was tied to a few other high-profile cases as well. So he has a good track record of winning. And trying to discredit him as a cheap suit wearing ambulance chaser, I don't think does a good job when you look into it. That's not necessarily what you're going to find. Situations are really sensitive, and while a lot of times you hear public opinion scrutinize accused individuals for not jumping out on front of this and vehemently denying their involvement in behaviors. I think why you don't do it is because you can paint yourself out to be just a poor character human being, or out of touch human being in a lot of cases. You tend to be frivolous with the perspective of the victim, which is natural. If you feel like you're being accused of something you didn't do, of course you're going to be lashing out at the victim, but that's not the perspective the world needs to see of you if they're not sure that person is not actually a victim, like you believe you feel they are not. So it's like, you got to understand not only how you feel toward the person who you feel is lying on you, but you got to understand that the rest of us don't know that person's lying on you. And now we're judging you with the intention of trusting and believing the victim first, and then looking at you and having to discern whether or not in doing so we will believe anything that comes out of your mouth. So it's best you say very little. It's best if you're going to vehemently deny yourself, not smear the accusers or the accusers' lawyers, even if you know they're two big chumps. That's not the point. The point is, when you point out that you believe they're two big chumps, you already have smear on your name in regards to the accusations coming your way from them. So now people are looking at it through a lens of, this person ain't all that good, and look at him lashing out at the accuser, poor victim. It's already enough going up against these people. Now they got to deal with this whale of a giant smearing their names for holding him accountable. It's just, it lends itself to a bigger picture guilt that you don't want attached to your name when you already have stuff like this being done. It's a lose-lose, but the definite loss is when you point yourself out to be somebody who's combative when accused. And maybe that's the natural response, but it ain't the image you want. And so that's really what it is. Jay-Z made a mistake last night. He shouldn't have said a damn thing, in my opinion. And you just take the scrutiny that comes with not. Or if you're going to say anything, and say prayers out to anyone who feels victimized in any situation. I deny that these claims were true. I didn't do these things. And that's pretty much all he needs to be saying. Not trying to paint out the person who's accusing him as a bad guy. There'll be a time and a place for that, but not when everybody's an hour removed from hearing the accusations attached to your name. It don't sit right. And it don't paint the right picture of this individual, Jay-Z. So I don't know, man. I think these are unprecedented circumstances for a guy like Jigga, who hasn't had too many things pointed at him that ain't right over the years. And I don't think he handled this in the way that I think he was as careful as necessary not to make himself look worse and guilty of these accusations. I don't think he did the greatest job of making people think he's absolutely not capable of this. So that's the problem for him. As I tell people all the time, man, people are attached to my list of people that I pray for. The Carters are on that list, but doesn't mean that I feel like they're innocent of everything just because I pray for them. Or people do all kinds of stuff I don't know nothing about, and maybe that they're being revealed just as a part of the prayers. You know what I mean? That the Lord revealed what it is that they shouldn't be doing that affects other people. You attach prayer to people, you don't know how God's going to use the situation. For all you know, you're praying for devils, and that those prayers are going to ultimately reveal those devils for what they are and stop them from hurting anyone innocent. So you never really know what God wants to do in situations like this, I feel. And that I pray for him and his family doesn't mean that I would otherwise co-sign behaviors for which I don't have any clue. If he's guilty, the man guilty. If he's innocent, then he's innocent. But as far as somebody being on my list and me co-signing them or thinking they're good people because I pray for them, that's not real. That's not real. And I want people to understand that I don't perceive it that it would be that way. So yeah, man, he is on the prayer list. His family's all on the prayer list. I pray for them all the time. But if he did this, I think justice is due. I don't think anyone has a right to do this. And a civil suit shouldn't be the only thing. One thing that he did say that I agree with, and who knows what'll happen next, but he said that if you think this is what happened, or if you believe these things happen, you should be filing a criminal suit, not a civil suit. I do agree with that. I think that criminal suits for situations like these are the way. I know people are going after money, and money's the way to align people with what they feel will make it right for the suffering that they've been through, change their life, put them in a position to take care of their loved ones. Life is fleeting, you need money, I get it. Him going to jail without you getting a buck doesn't really feel all that great in a world full of capitalism. I get that fully. But at the same time, if you want to hold your credibility, going after a person's pockets for doing something to you, it doesn't have the effect that you hope it would. Going after them criminally is something that will make people really buy into you, because essentially what people want to see from you is that you're not money grubbing. Although that doesn't pay your bills either. So who knows, man? Perception, how much value does it hold in a situation? It depends on how much you can handle in terms of scrutiny, in my opinion. Depends on what other business ventures you have tied up into your lifestyle being straight and narrow. If people go to smear you, it can affect your situation. For example, Jay-Z in this NFL thing, I don't know how the NFL gonna handle this. When you have these type of accusations attached to your name, they usually want to part ways. And at the end of the day, a guy can be accused of a million different things. I can randomly just walk up to somebody, accuse them of anything. If that's all it takes to ruin a deal, then boy, are we in a bad world for that. But the reality is, when you're Jay-Z and somebody accuses you of something like this, and you got big deals all over the NFL, this, that, and the third, yeah, it's probably going to affect what happens next when your name is being smeared for the last 12 hours as a bad guy that takes advantage of children. So I don't imagine that the NFL is going to be able to just brush this under the rug. It's too high profile, man. They're going to have to make a real decision on their involvement with Jigga. That's it. So we'll see how that plays out. It's a crisis situation for them, but that's the least of Jigga's worries. He got bigger problems, because these are real problems to have attached to your name as a person, with children, as a man of a great accomplishment. You don't want this stuff attached to your name. You don't want these, you don't want nobody calling you a PDF file. You see what's happening to Drake and that being attached to his name just because off the strength of a song being played. Digging into your past, you know what I mean? But in situations like this, man, I look at the person, I say the character of the man. At the end of the day, when he was in some rough spaces back when he was in Brooklyn, before he became a famous entrepreneur and MC, and those rough spaces may have pushed him into some spaces where he would otherwise be guilty, and maybe he didn't do any time for any of that. This is the universe will come back around, man. That's what I want people to understand. That's why it's important that we raise our young people, we raise our kids to understand that some of the stuff that y'all doing today may come back and get you tomorrow. Some of the things you don't care about while you're dealing with darkness, and you don't know how to respect others and respect yourself properly. Some of these things are going to come and hit you when you do know how to respect yourself and others properly. Some of these things are going to come back and hit you when you're trying to raise your kids. You know what I mean? When your image is long past some of those efforts and those actions, that's when the consequences come back and bite you in the backside. And maybe it won't be those things that you did that ultimately are the vessel from which that justice comes. It might be you being hit with things you didn't do, and it come around and ultimately put you away for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that I'm certain of the circumstances Jigga was involved in. I just know what he rapped about. I know what his old friends are telling in regards to stories about him. They moved a certain way, they moved things a certain way, and maybe they poisoned their community. Maybe. And while I can say the same thing about a fast food joint and a big wig pharmaceutical, they all need to be held accountable for the poison that they push. That doesn't exclude people on the streets, you know what I mean? From deserving or whatever they would otherwise deserve for whatever they otherwise did. It just means that more people need to be held accountable than our society is going to. But God to get them too. And that's what it comes down to, man. If Jigga did this, he gonna get what he get for that. But even if he didn't do this, he might get what he get for that, for which he did do. And that's why it's important that we stay close to the Most High and keep our morals in check from day to day. Try to win battles in our lives. Keep our minds where they need to be. Watch the company we keep. And I mean, the company you keep can trigger different circumstances. And if you're not strong enough to walk away from certain people, you may find yourself roped up in certain things that may come back around and bite you in the backside. I've heard of many stories where a guy was in the car with the wrong person. Now he going to jail because something was in the trunk that shouldn't have been there. Or they got in a situation where violence occurred. And that person's roped up in it one way or another because they were with the person that they shouldn't have been with. Sometimes you just got to move by yourself. You know, him being so closely aligned with P. Diddy, yeah, money made it all make sense because P. Diddy was making billions and Jigga was trying to make billions and they can make a lot of money together. But see, this is the problem with having money be tied to your willingness and unwillingness to do things. Not every money is good for you. Not every circumstance that you're willing to get money in is good for you. You know, I was looking at King AK-47. He received $70 from a guy who was commenting. He had to forward that money back to that person for that exact wisdom, because that person had commented on some things in regards to this Jay-Z situation, claiming that he was a grown person who liked to mess with young girls or what have you. And King AK-47 didn't want his people to think that he agreed with those thoughts. He didn't want his name associated with those thoughts. That $70 was bad money. You accepting that money while that person's saying that is essentially sending the signal to all of us who paying attention to this situation that you would, one, take any money from anybody no matter what they're talking about, and two, that you may co-sign these behaviors or may engage in these behaviors yourself. Sometimes you just gotta part ways with people who are getting money, doing things that betray your sense of self-worth and your morals. I can't do what that would be that you're doing to get this money. I may need this money really bad, but there's certain things that if I make those mistakes with you, it's gonna create more problems than I already have. You know what I mean? I might be able to fix my financial situation in the short term, but I might end up in a situation I can't get out of in the long term. Way worse than what it is I'm dealing with in needing money. There's a lot of ways to get money. I ain't gotta take that money. But when money is your God and everything you're doing is about money, and you'll go where money's at, just like a lot of these devils want to teach you to do, just like a lot of these influences are ultimately catered around is classism and the need to make sure that you're not bum. You're gonna do horrible things and face horrible consequences for trying to keep up with the Joneses that ultimately are trying to coerce you into spaces where you value money, but maybe not everything else that's attached to your name. End up stealing your life away, stealing your freedom away, smearing your name far past the moment you're in, taking all the money that you get, not only from the circumstance for which you are guilty, but any other money you may also receive. It's just, the math doesn't add up. Some money you gotta leave on the table, man. And if I'm not mistaken, it might have been an interlude in one of Jay-Z's albums where he alluded to that. He's essentially saying, someone on his album, I don't remember which album it was or who was saying it, but they were essentially saying, I'm gonna leave the money on the table, take the advice. Like, that was wisdom that he provided a lot of us. We understand that because he taught that to us. But if you don't practice what you preach and you align yourself with people who are doing all types of things that you don't want to be remembered for, that you don't want to come out of the dark just so because you can get money with these people, then you betray your own wisdom. So that's really what it is, man. Each and every day we got to win battles. That's why I tell myself in prayer and tell God in prayer to help me win battles, man, each and every day. I can have it right for 364 days, but it be that one day I could throw my life away just not being on point and trying to win these battles. That's why continuous consistency in refocusing on your code, your morals, and your ethics, reestablishing what it is you're willing to do, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're not, assessing the risk of things. It's always important to keep an update with those things, because the enemy's always trying to weasel his way in to catch you on that one bad day where you're not thinking right, try to make you throw your life away, try to put that one situation or that one person in your life that's going to make you crash out so you can throw the whole thing away. And you've been working very hard for everything you put together, just for it to all be gone in a moment. And it will be your fault. You know what I mean? And that's what they're trying to coerce you into, that guilt and to that loss. And so for me, it's like, nah, man, I ask the Lord to help me win battles each and every day. Yeah, I've been winning battles, but is this the day I'm going to throw it all away? Is this the day where I'm going to start the process of not being consistent anymore? Being overly satisfied, so to speak, with whatever it is I was building, and stop the process of continuing to build? I've been eating right all this time, but it's the day I'm going to start the process of eating poorly. It's just like, nah, man, we gotta put ourselves in a position to be on guard against losing these little battles in our lives, man, so that we don't end up throwing stuff away that we work so hard to put together, so that we don't end up lining up with people that are going to coerce us into throwing stuff away that we work so hard to put together. You know what I mean? Be careful all this time. Jacob's been careful all this time, but he let this guy Puff allow him to be aligned with his actions. You knew, and see, that's another thing. As you align yourself with certain people, you can be careful and full of wisdom all you want. If they're fools and they're acting up next to you, well, you're going to be associated with that fool. And who else taught us that but Jigga? He don't argue with fools because people from a distance can't tell who is who. You don't line up with him either. Puffy, for all the money he was making and all the opportunities he was providing himself, he was reckless and foolish. And whether he's guilty of the things that he did or not, because he was always partying and laissez-faire and this and that, people could associate him and rope him into circumstances that make him look like he was guilty of things, because he was always playing around. You know what I'm saying? And that's also part of it. You don't have to be as bad as people say you are. You just have to be in places where they can frame you to look as bad as they want you to look. That's it. If I'm always dancing, spinning around a damn circle looking like a damn idiot, placing money over the values of this, that, and the third, well, now I'm in a space where people can manipulate my image so that they can say he's a folly. He does mess around like this. Look at him always holding a bottle. He put something in those bottles, and he's drugging people. It's like, you can't say none of that stuff about me because you ain't never seen me with no bottle. You got to find something else. You see what I'm saying? And you don't line up next to people who are holding bottles if you're one of those people that never do. Why? Because you don't want to be associated with them when they go down for the folly that they do. This is the mistake that people like Jay make. You don't want to be associated with Puffy on no level. I don't care how much money you can make with this fool. He's a fool. Watch your friends. It's one of the main things my mother used to tell me is watch your friends. If your friends are doing stuff that you can't get with, you need to distance yourself from them. It don't mean you don't love your friend. It don't mean you don't answer the phone when they call. It don't mean you don't hand them $1 when they need it, or whatever the case you may be able to provide. But you don't find yourself following and dancing and laughing with them if that don't align with what it is you're about. If you don't go to clubs, stop going to clubs with them. You know, it took certain things happening to me in those environments for me to understand that I'm not wired like my friends. And even if I were, consequences go differently for me than them. I go to the club, get too drunk, things go bad for me. When they go to the club, get too drunk, they have a good night. I'm on a different path. I can't do what they do. I have bad hangovers. They don't have no hangovers. I get in fights. I end up getting, in situations where violence occurs. They don't have them problems. That stuff is attracted to me when I act that way. So why would I continue to act that way as if I'm aligned with their DNA and how things go for them? They ain't. I'm on a different path. I got different thoughts rolling around in my head. I react differently to circumstances than they do. I can't do what they do. And that I don't have that self-awareness is why I end up finding myself in those situations. We got to grow up in that way. Even if you're older, you got to grow up in that way. And like I said, you could be the cleanest, most serious, the most responsible guy in the world. If that responsibility doesn't bleed into you choosing the right friends and picking and choosing which bags to chase and which ones to leave alone, and just disciplining yourself against greed and different things, you're going to lose those battles. It doesn't matter how much you uphold yourself in your space. It's the stuff that's around you that's going to sink you. It's the people around you that's going to tear you down. It's their mistakes that ultimately you're going to be associated with, even though you're very careful. And I'm telling y'all, a lot of y'all are smart enough to understand this, but y'all value status and money in a way that betrays those things. And so even within all your wisdom, you still going to end up throwing it all away. There's certain activities that you know damn well you wouldn't do unless the money's involved. There's certain things that you will keep your mouth closed about that you know damn well you would always tell the truth about if not for money involved. It's that money that keeps you compromised, and it's going to bring about the consequences that otherwise being unwise brings you. And what's the common denominator? Money. People stay in spaces they don't like. Why? Money. But it's not, the relationship between self and consequence is not part of the money's not a part of that. You could pay me for what is a random thing, run across the street and getting hit by a car. That money does not keep my bones from being broken, me from being run over and dying. The relationship between consequence and human being is not covered in the transaction of cash to human being. Essentially what I'm saying to you, if you hate the environment you're in, someone could pay you $1 billion to be there or not pay you at all. It's still going to be an environment you hate. If you're going to be around people you have no business being around, and they're going to be doing things they have no business doing, the consequences of those circumstances falling on your head does not change just because money has been given to you for being around those people. I hear situations people do for money. I'm going to be a security guard. Now I got to protect this bad guy from stuff that his mouth get him into, and he's going to pay me money. Well, you end up getting shot up and dead because of this idiot's mouth. He's standing behind you after provoking others. The relationship between the consequences of covering the backside of this guilty, loud-talking moron and your passing is not covered in the transaction of money from that moron to you. You still gonna die because of you being in between him and whatever consequences his mouth caused. That's a bad transaction. But he's paying me a lot of money. Okay. Still, the money is over there. The consequences and his behavior are over here with you. And that's how I've always equated bad jobs, circumstances that ultimately put my life and others at risk for money. It never made any sense to me. The money's there. The consequences and my vulnerable behind is over here. Now, if I could put enough money in between me and those consequences, then it makes sense. You tell me to jump off a 10-story building. If you got enough money down there for me to fall on to cushion my fall, then okay, I'll survive the fall. Otherwise, the money can't do nothing for me. I'm going to crack up and die. The hell that money going to do? $10 million, $20 billion, $1 zillion, all the money in the world. If I'm jumping off a 10-story building, I probably ain't going to survive that. Then what's the money going to do for me? And many people say, well, it does something for my family. Or you might be in a space where it's like either you take the money or they're going to do terrible things to you. You know what I mean? There's a lot of circumstances that the world puts you in. When you walk in the room with the wrong people, now all of a sudden you are obligated or whatever you coerced into. But if you have choice, well, that choice should be very easy. If the circumstances are going to be undesirable, then the bag too should be undesirable. if the association between myself and the consequences of whatever actions are undesirable, then the money itself should be undesirable. This ain't hard. But because we live in a world that has warped us into the culture of status meaning so much, money meaning so much, people with money reminding us every day that we don't have it, people with money glamorizing their circumstances as if all of their problems go away for being in those luxurious spaces. Beautiful women or beautiful men, whatever you're attracted to, always throwing status in your face, throwing the fact that you don't have money in your face, throwing the fact that everything is super fine in their life, and look how miserable you are, and don't you hate me for it, and isn't this a desirable space to be in? Why don't you get over here? It's going to coerce you into having the consequences attached to chasing bad bags just so you can have a bag to keep up with them. So you can then in turn do the same thing, influencing someone else in the bad spaces too. It's a devilish, self-destructive, wicked culture that I never fully bought into and still don't. Even on the smallest of levels. One of my favorite content shows, I don't even like watching it that much because there's so many ads. It's a bad experience. Every 3 minutes this man says something, he got an ad coming up. If it ain't him with an ad, saying something, selling somebody some bullshit, it's one of the YouTube ads that come around selling me some bullshit. He gets money from that. But the experience for the person who he's creating all this content for is bad. So I don't watch as much. He may get his ad money, but he's losing his views. So it's like, I mean, the things that people do for money a lot of times put them in spaces that they don't want to be in, that they don't believe in, that they're not wiser for being in, that they don't believe they are wiser for being in, but because it provides cash, we're going to do it. And then we've coerced one another and look around and like, yeah, that's what we do. Yeah, that's what we do. We're shoving in shit at 3 a.m, $4, because we have to. We all agree that we have to. And that's really what makes it what it is. And we'll guilt trip each other saying, you don't want to work, you don't want to work. That's not work. That's a bad circumstance attached to a fleeting lifespan. That person is going to die at some point. They don't have a lot of time to be spending doing things they don't want to do for money. And yet, because we're in a space where we coerce each other a million different ways from a million different directions to agree that money is key, and so we'll be in bad spaces doing unwise things for money, we're going to find ourselves the consequences of doing those unwise things. And the money goes somewhere else. The money ends up going somewhere else anyway. And so it's like, man, listen, man. Y'all want to know why I don't aim for certain types of success? It's because these type of thoughts are always on the forefront of my mind. 100% of the time. Money is a burden in a lot of cases that is supposed to coerce me by the way of pressure and obligation, worldly, not godly, but worldly obligation, and the fear of death, poverty, unhealthiness, unwellness of many kinds. I'm supposed to coerce myself into death, unhealthiness, unwellness of many kinds for money. I'm not escaping those things. I may escape poverty, but I'm still warped in the consequences going to be bringing about bad days and a horrible end for money. Throwing away my respect, self-worth for money. That doesn't bring about no more youth. That doesn't replenish your health, your skin as you age. Staying in these stressful spaces for money. Throwing your life away, taking penitentiary chances, 15, 20 years of your life gone for money. The money itself won't bring about your youth, nor will the consequences of doing what you're doing that you do not like. If anything, it expedites that aging process. So you may, within our culture, go to a doctor and get a tummy tuck, have them rearrange your face, have them stretch your face out, have them do all this type of stuff to make you look young, but they're not doing a good job of that in this era. They're really not. You still aging. You know what I mean? Especially with the culture of trying to cope with the consequences of doing stuff we don't want to do for money, things that stress us out for money. That stuff ultimately puts us in a space for where we need vices, drugs, alcohol, pastimes, sex, and all different types of stuff that's going to age us so that we can cope with the stuff that we have to do to get money. So we can cope with them long ass days of doing stuff that we're not wired to do for money, further aging us, further coursing us into spaces of dependency and depression. I mean, it's like, yo, man, I ain't rolling with none of that. Y'all can have this capitalism garbage. I'm going to be planting the seed that is all for our worsening. I'm going to plant the seed that the money, if it ain't coming in a way that ultimately is wired for us, that's going to be wise for us, that is poison us. That's it. Give a damn how much it is. The math don't matter. If it can't stand between me and the consequences, if it can't stand between me and them hard, long days of doing whatever the hell I am not wired to do for it, then it ain't helping me. I might as well line up and be poor. It's a different type of uncomfort, but it's still uncomfortable just the same. And of course, our ways out of these spaces, start shunning these energies that ultimately want us to value money over good days and valuable wisdom and all these different things that provide us real wealth of life and understanding and anticipation of how to handle struggles as they come. Wealth only provides only a portion of that, a very small portion at that. And you're going to give more than you get back in a lot of cases, unless you cheat in the game, for which many are. If you're doing something you love to do and you're making money and you're doing it the right way. If you're doing something for your family, you're sacrificing so that you can feed your kids, probably doing it the right way. But don't use that as an excuse to coerce other people into circumstances that are not wired for them. I'm out here selling these drugs for money. I'm out here shooting this person for... Nah, you're not. You're not doing it for your family. You're doing it as a self-loathing mechanism that you are not fully aware of. You do it because you hate yourself. Don't be confused why you out there selling poison to your community while everybody's seeing you do it. Don't be confused why you're doing things that have you dancing the devil's music, not literally, but figuratively, shaking your backside for $1. You hate yourself. You're not afraid of poverty. You're poor. You're poor in the wealth that would otherwise make you a fulfilled human being. And you think money's going to supplement that when it doesn't at all. And you're about a few ticks away from the feds knocking on your door, taking everything you've earned any damn way and throwing your ass somewhere you don't want to be anyway for a long period of time, for which you'll be living poor. This is what you don't want. More than you have a desire to keep up with the Joneses who are trying to coerce you into spaces where you'll behave as if you hate yourself for money. Into unwise spaces that bring about unwise and unwanted consequences. You need to change your way of looking at it. It should be an unwanted culture. Just like that woman ain't gonna line up with you unless you got a bunch of money. She don't want to have nothing to do with nobody look like you. She don't care about you at all, but you got a lot of money, so she right there. That is the same deal. It's the same deal. Her laid up with that person she don't like, that don't like her, only with her because she pretty, she only with him because he got money. The money is not going to stand in between you and that person. You still got to lay down with that person. You still got to see their face every day. You still got to deal with their smell every day. That stuff is not going to be excluded with the inclusion of the money. You're forcing yourself into spaces for which your life is wasted. You are wasting time you will not get back. Youth and pretty you will not get back. So that you can be in spaces where money is found. Where there's a million ways to make money. But you found this one, so you're going to line up and lay down with this cash cow. Who's going to cheat on you, who might slap you around, who's going to humiliate you, have you doing all types of stuff you're not wired for in the bedroom, all different types of stuff. But because they got money and because we're in the culture for which that should be prioritized, you're going to allow yourself to sit next to that person instead of finding what's meant for you. And as a result, you're going to be miserable, but acceptable in the culture where money is king. And as long as you are wired that way and you allow for things to have you in spaces like that, you're going to waste the little life you have in spaces that are not meant for you, doing things you have no business doing, so that somebody can approve of you because you're in a status that allows for them to see you as somebody who has a little money. It is bullshit, I'm telling you. Because you don't get that time back. You can always make another dollar, but you will not get that moment back. And you spend that moment with the wrong cash cow, or you spend that moment at the wrong job, or you spend that moment working hard just so it to all be taken away, it ain't worth it. The math is bad. Math is terrible, man. And if you just have a little more understanding of what God is really about, he will tell you that you can find another bag, that you will find a person that's meant for you, that you will be excluded from those cultures that ultimately want to force you into spaces where he doesn't respect you. You don't have to forego your respect from God so that you can have some currency that's going to be exchanged amongst people who don't even know what you're going through, who are applying the culture of status to you just like they apply to everybody else around them, not even beholding the world properly. This is not real. But the consequences you're going to have for doing things you have no business doing for money are definitely going to meet your body. This is reality. The money don't exclude you from the consequences, man. You there. So I'm trying to get people to understand, man. And then we want to claim things aren't fair, this, that, and the third. We got to start being fair to ourselves. Video 44, I thank y'all for watching. I'm out.